Now imagine the Arya noble being that you will become appears in the space before you. This is the being that you will become when you have engaged in the altruistic intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all living beings, in conjunction with a direct realization of emptiness. This will occur prior to you becoming a Buddha. Imagine the guidance and help of your future Arya noble being enters your present being at the abdominal solar plexus chakra in the form of powerful, supportive, and sustaining yellow light energy. As you breathe out, all obstacles to receiving this support are removed. Now imagine that the collection of true paths and true cessations on the mind stream of the Arya noble being you will become appear as pure light energy filling the space in front of you. As you breathe in again, imagine these true paths and true cessations in the form of pure light energy enter your being at the brow chakra in the space between your eyebrows. As you breathe out, imagine all obstacles to attaining these true paths of consciousness and these true cessations on your mind stream are removed. And finally, with a truly beneficial sense of humility and gratitude, imagine that you prostrate 3 times before the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha refuge that you will become when you have achieved the fruits of all the levels and paths of a fully realized being. So that kind of meditation is a bit different from the causal refuge that we take, because it is a form of tantra. It is a form of tantra meditation and tantra exercise. And the more you do this, just like with anything that we visualize that we want to achieve, the more it sort of comes into reality, or what we call reality. It helps us to make that occur. It's telling our mind that we're going in this direction. Okay, now we're going on to the topic for today, which is the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. When we talk about the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha, we are talking about our own unlimited positive potential and the kind of being that we can become. So in the context of taking refuge or taking a safe direction in our life, we're learning more about the enlightened being that we can become. The enlightened being who's guiding us. We're also learning more about the existing enlightened beings, the Buddha that existed 2,500 years ago and gave these teachings, and we're learning about the enlightened beings who continue to appear for our benefit and why they're reliable guides. So a Buddha's body, speech, and mind are one entity. They're an appearance of the Buddha's mind. They are completely integrated. So the body of a Buddha is a reflection of their mental states that karmically correspond to what sentient beings are capable of benefiting from. The Buddha's appearances are in tune with our karma, and at the same time, they're directly manifested from their own pure states of mind. previously we discussed how this is possible through the example of one of the Mahayana Buddhist schools of tenets called the mind only or Chittamatra school. It presents a system that advocates that no external things exist apart or separate or distinct from the observing mind. So no external things exist as entities apart or separate or distinct from the observing mind. Our limited five senses only decode a specific frequency, bandwidth of electromagnetic information, and and there are many, many waveform fields surrounding us that we do not decode. The antennae that we call eyes, ears, nose, tongue, taste, touch, all of those antennae they only transform specific frequencies into electrical signals, which are communicated to the brain, and this decodes this particular electromagnetic information into the physical external world of objects that appears to us to be separated, when in fact, according to the Chittamatra school, there is no external world as we perceive it. However, a Buddha's omniscient mind is able to perceive all these information fields and all these electromagnetic frequencies, and they are able to manipulate those fields and those frequencies and simultaneously generate an infinite number of forms that will karmically correspond to what any given sentient being is capable of benefiting from. So this is kind of like an amazing quality that's hard for us to grasp. I'll just leave it there. And last time we gave some examples of how the historical Buddha manifested in different forms to help beings who had, extreme ignorance or extreme anger or extreme attachment or extreme low self-esteem. That's what those stories were about, and how the Buddha is able to manifest in those ways. So, a Buddha's body is a reflection of their inner mental states, which can benefit others in a very positive way. So sometimes just looking at a statue of a Buddha or a picture of a Buddha, we get a very peaceful feeling. Just the form of the Buddha can conjure up a sense of peace within us. A Buddha's not male or female. A Buddha's body is a manifestation that is to guide others and can appear in many different forms in order to skillfully help sentient beings in ways that will be most beneficial to them. The Buddha's mind is not male or female. The Buddha doesn't have any kind of permanent or concrete body. The Buddhas have a huge amount of energy at their disposal to use for the benefit of others, because they've completely given up self-grasping attachment. Or self-centeredness. The amount of energy that we sentient beings spend concerned about ourself or me and mine, it's huge. We really stop to think about it. It's hard to even imagine what it would be like to have no sense of about ourself and only being concerned about benefiting all living beings. But that if we didn't have that energy tied up the way it is, we'd have huge amounts of energy to do this. The body, speech, and mind, as I said, they're one entity. A Buddha's body is not made of atoms or subatomic particles, but it's a reflection of the mental state. It might appear to be a form made of atoms, but it isn't really that. Even the pores of the Buddha are omniscient, because they are an expression of the subtlest level of body and mind, subtlest energy levels of body and mind. And at that subtlest level, those energy levels of body and mind are inseparable. This is the subtlest level of energy, mind and body and form energy that travels from life to lifetime within us. So I'm going to talk about what they call the 32 signs and 80 marks of a Buddha's body. And this information comes from Alexander Berzin, and some from Tipton Children. So there are physical signs and marks on the form of the Buddha that's called the supreme emanation body, which is the body, an example of that is the body of the historical Shakyamuni Buddha after he had attained enlightenment. Then he had a supreme emanation body, which would look similar to the pictures that you see in the statues that you see, only it would be in a 3D human kind of form, or apparently human kind of form. So here are some of those. We'll go through, I mean, there are 32 signs and 80 marks. We're not going to go through all of those. We'll just go through a few of the more common ones. Well, there are other kinds of features, but there's only, 32 signs and 80 marks. So here's one of them. The Buddha has a Dharma wheel on their feet, soles of their feet and their palms. So there is an impression of a 1,000-spoke Dharma wheel on the palms and the feet. A Buddha's feet don't touch the ground in the same way as our feet touch the ground. Remember, this is not an actual, once you attain enlightenment, you can appear to be human, but you're not. It's not the same kind of thing. So Buddha's feet don't touch the ground the same way we do, but they do leave or can leave the imprint of a wheel, a Dharma wheel, wherever they walk. And there are places in India and in Tibet where there'll be these imprints that you'll see imprints that were left on stones that look like footprints with sort of wheels in them. And this is what the monks and the nuns, and they all say this is where a Buddha walked. So they say that there are causes for all of these marks and signs, and they say that the cause for this particular sign, the Dharma wheels, is a Buddha's having always greeted and escorted a spiritual mentor. So take note. And having had a selfless attitude of offering personal service to others. So then there's another one. There's you'll see it, don't see it in this picture so much maybe, but it is on the statue here of the Buddha. There's a curl of hair right between the midbrow, and it's very tight, and it turns clockwise. It's called urna kesha in Sanskrit. They say when it's pulled from its tip, it extends a huge distance, but when it's released, it tightly recoils. And they say this is one of the most difficult signs to achieve, and is the result of having served all one's superiors with respect. So this includes your parents, teachers, elders, spiritual masters, and so forth. It also comes from having helped others achieve a better state in samsara. Helping other sentient beings achieve an ultimate rebirth in the cycle of samsara. Here's another one, which is one to shoot for. Food always tastes delicious to a Buddha, no matter what the food is. So a Buddha has a special faculty of taste that no matter what food a Buddha is given, it always tastes delicious. The cause for this faculty is having nursed the sick and the old and the infirm, and especially having cared for those whom others find distasteful and repulsive. So, you clean up after some old person who's really made a mess. Maybe food will taste better. Another one is there's this crown protrusion. It's called an nisha. The crown protrusion is made of radiant flesh, and I'm assuming what they mean by that is that there's perhaps an energy that radiates from it, or maybe even a glow, I don't know. but they say it's made of radiant flesh. It's round and circling clockwise. When it's seen from a distance, it seems to be 4 finger widths high, but upon closer scrutiny, its height can't be measured. This is the most difficult physical feature to achieve, and it is the result of having always visualized one's spiritual mental on the crown of one's head. And there are many visualizations in the preparation, the 6 preparatory practices. There are visualizations where you imagine that your guru is on the crown of your head and then merges into you and becomes one with you. So if you do this on a regular basis, this is what they say is one of the causes of that. Another cause is having visited temples and monasteries and engaged in spiritual practices in those temples and monasteries. Here's another feature. A Buddha has round, full cheeks like those of a lion. And this comes from having rid himself or herself completely of idle chatter and senseless talking. So everything that a Buddha says has purpose and is meaningful. And that results in a nice round cheeks. I don't know what that means. I guess not. The teeth of a Buddha are of equal length. And well, sort of like if you think about it like a horse, how they're all like beautiful. I mean, I've seen people with teeth kind of like that. Even their what do they call these? The eye teeth. Eye teeth, yeah. Even those are not so pointy. I've seen some people that are like this. It's, wow, how'd you get that kind of teeth? This comes from having ceased all of the 5 wrong livelihoods and having always earned an honest living. So the 5 wrong livelihoods are obtaining money or material goods through 1, flattery, 2, pressure, 3, extortion, saying to somebody that if he or she doesn't pay you the money, you're going to expose their secrets to others. I think this goes on a lot in politics. 4, bribery, and 5, pretense. They also say a Buddha's teeth are free from all stains. A Buddha has clear and distinct eyes. The colored and white portions of the eye are clear and distinct with no red or yellow discolorations. This is the result of having looked at others with compassionate eyes, having worked for their welfare, having generated equal concern for all, no matter if their suffering is great or if their suffering is small. And they say that the eyes of a Buddha are dark blue. Okay, so those are just some of the qualities of the Buddha's body. Now we're going to go to the Buddha's speech. The Buddha's speech has 64 qualities, which we will not go through all of them. It is helpful to read through them sometime, though. They're kind of like a teaching for us on how we can try to train our own speech. Alexander Berzin has listed all of them. They're at his Study Buddhism website, studybuddhism.com or something like that. So here are some of them. Buddha teaches everyone according to their capability, and or capacity. This would be so great to be able to do this. With a Buddhist speech, everyone hears it according to their own capability and their own capacity. For example, a Buddha may say, all things are impermanent. And one person may go, oh, well, that means that, all of my stuff is going to disintegrate, it's going to break down, it's impermanent and it won't last. Somebody else might say, all things there's this subtle impermanence going on. Everything is constantly changing at a very, very subtle level. Somebody may hear it that way. There's a level that we can't see, but it's continually and constantly changing. At the subatomic level, everything is moving and changing. The point is, the Buddha can say one thing and people will hear it according to their capability and capacity. This is what the point is, okay? Somebody else may say, death is certain. You know, if everything's impermanent, death is certain, so I need to prepare for it. Or somebody may have, they'll hear the Buddha say that and have a realization of emptiness. So that one phrase, all things are impermanent, can be heard by different people in different ways.
So wherever they are,
whatever Buddha says is like that.
That's the main.
Yeah, that's the main point. So a Buddhist speech is very flexible, and that it communicates to each listener how they hear according to their own level and capacity of mind. And that would be incredible if you could speak that way to everyone. That would be amazing. Another aspect of the Buddhist speech, enlightening speech, is that it goes straight to the heart and the mind in the sense that it can directly indicate to our mental consciousness how we can perceive the clear meaning of topics like the two truths, like dependent arising, like emptiness, and so on. It doesn't mean that every time a sentient being hears a teaching, it's going to go straight to their mind and heart. See, when they're talking about mind and heart, they're talking about this area. It's not necessarily our conceptual mind. It's like, we get it. The Buddha says something and we get it. But due to our own karma, we all have obscurations that the Buddhist speech has to work its way through. But from the side of the Buddhist speech, it always has the potential to go directly into our mind and trigger some definite change in our attitudes. And sometimes when we listen to teachings, this happens. Sometimes a teacher will say something and immediately, all of a sudden, we just get it. Where we may have heard the same thing before from somebody else, but it never clicked, and then we just get it. There were times like that with Geshe Dragpa and Geshe Nima. I remember he said something to me about time. And this was something that I had heard before, thought before, but the way, when he said it to me, right here where you're sitting, Bettina, he said this to me about time. Geshe Nima, this was Geshe Nima, and I just got it, that there is no time but the present moment. There can never be, and there never will be any other time but the present moment. And I got it at a very visceral level, which I had not had before. I had it at a more, maybe a conceptual level, but not a real feeling of it. Oh, I can turn the heat up a little bit. So a Buddhist speech is also, another quality is a Buddhist speech is unstained, since it is spoken on the basis of the Buddha having removed all of the afflictive emotions and their imprints from their mind. So their speech is completely unstained. So imagine what it would be like to speak from a mind. If our mind had no anger, no attachment, no ignorance, and we spoke from that kind of a mind, how incredible that would be. We wouldn't be manipulating to get what we want, or it would be very powerful. And that is something that we can attain. I mean, we can't attain all of these qualities. We can attain Buddhahood. Another quality of the Buddhist speech is that it's sparkling clear, since it never uses words or expressions not commonly known to ordinary people. Not all teachers are like this. A lot of teachers use some pretty highfalutin words that you don't mean. You have to run to the dictionary to figure out what it says. When a Buddha is speaking, a Buddha knows their audience and knows the kind of words to use. So for us, this is a reminder for us to speak in ways that other people can understand. So if we're speaking to a child, speak to a child in the way that the child is going to understand. If we're speaking to somebody from another culture, we do our best to speak in a way that that person's from that culture will understand, that we won't offend them in some way. So we should try to develop a sensitivity to whoever is hearing what we're saying, and remember that communication is not just about getting words out of our mouths. But communication is about making sure people understand what we're trying to communicate, that they get our meaning. Do you want a cup of hot something? Okay. Okay.
I just feel that, it's always happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so then I just get it chill, and I'm not cold, but then I just feel something happen inside my body.
Oh.
I get it something. They just can't explain.
Okay. The Buddhist speech has the ability to tame, pacify, and subdue our disturbing emotions because it teaches us the antidotes to apply against the three poisonous states of mind, which are attachment, aversion, and the ignorance which is at their root. And all of the afflictive emotions that arise out of attachment and aversion, jealousy, pride, anger, hatred. So if we had that kind of speech, wouldn't that be incredible? When we said something, it wouldn't incite anybody's anger, but it would pacify it, Or we wouldn't incite somebody's jealousy if we said something, but it would pacify it. So it would always be able to, whatever we said could subdue somebody into being, into a peaceful state of mind. And we can do this, we can try and practice this ourselves, and through repetition and training, we can do it, because that's how we do everything, through repetition and training, anything, even becoming a Buddha. So a Buddha's speech, another quality, is it gives rise to happiness and bliss because it teaches us what suffering is, what the causes of suffering are, that cessation of suffering is possible, and that there is a path to happiness and bliss. Those are the Four Noble Truths. That's why and everything the Buddha says falls into these Four Noble Truths. You can find everything, all the teachings of the Buddhists can be found within these Four Noble Truths. But we know that some people, no matter what they say, they seem to make us uptight or agitated, or the whole room is like, what are they going to do? So what we say and how we say it matters, and we should be aware of that. We should be aware of the things we say and how we say them, so that we can help to lead others to happiness and help them to remove their afflictions and problems. It's pretty important. All right. The Buddhist speech never leaves us disappointed. This is because, having listened to it, if we think about it and familiarize ourselves with the meaning of what we have heard, and that's what meditation is, familiarization. That's what meditation means in Tibetan. It means familiarization. We're familiarizing our mind with these particular teachings and concepts. So if we think about it, familiarize ourselves with it, we will actually achieve the results just as they were described by the Buddha. In this way, we'll never regret that our listening to it was pointless or didn't yield any results. We just keep at it. And that's what it means by saying that, but the Buddhist speech never leaves us disappointed. A Buddhist speech is clear in all details, since it presents the Dharma without, some teachers have like a tight-fisted attitude about what they're teaching, and they purposely will conceal certain things or hide things, and they'll explain some things but not other things, and they'll explain only the words and not their meaning. And I'm not sure why some teachers do this. It's almost like they don't want the students to have all their information. The Buddha is not like that. The Buddha is wanting us to become a Buddha. The Buddha is wanting us to know everything that they are, and so they're very, very clear in the details. A Buddhist speech is logical. It can't be undermined by either direct or inferential perception, and it doesn't contradict itself in its statements. We can see how a lot of people contradict themselves, how their speech can be completely illogical, how what they say happened is not what we experienced. We didn't experience that happening. So a Buddhist speech is not like that. again, this indicates to us qualities that we want to develop in our own speech. A Buddhist speech is not cruel, since it doesn't lack methods for recovering from our transgressions and harmful behavior. So a Buddha never preaches damnation, eternal damnation, but teaches many effective means to overcome any downfall that we may experience. And like one of these means is, rejoicing in the constructive actions of others instead of being jealous. The Buddha teaches us the means. So he's not cruel in that way. The Buddha's speech is like the bellowing call of a divine being's elephant. So what this means is that a Buddha is never hesitant or shy to speak out. A lot of times, if we're going to be speaking, we will get all wound up. We wonder what other people are going to think of us. If we say something, whether we should do something or not do something, we don't. A Buddha never worries about it. A Buddha knows what is, how to express it, and is not hesitant about it. A Buddha's speech is melodious, like the call of the ancient songbird. This means that it continues from topic to topic without any break, and after it's ended, it leaves us with a strong wish to hear it again. Can you imagine if our speech was like that?
I know, right?
If people would say, "Don't stop talking, I want to hear it again." A Buddha is without self-conceit or self-despair. A Buddha's speech is without any feeling of that. When a Buddha teaches the Dharma, although others may praise the Buddha's words, a Buddha never gets proud. Also, a Buddhist speech is without any feeling of self-despair or despondency. Even if others say that the Buddha has explained something poorly, a Buddha never feels discouraged, never feels depressed, never is downtrodden, and never at the thought of being criticized. And that's a good thing for us to try and remember, because people criticize all the time. And we have to have we have to know ourselves well. We have to know what we think, we know what we believe, know where we're at. And so people can criticize it, but it can just sort of bounce off and we don't have to get upset because we understand who we are. A Buddhist speech is continuous. It's never the case that sometimes the Buddha feels like explaining the Dharma and at other times the Buddha's too tired or can't be bothered. The Buddha explains without ever breaking the continuity of the flow. For instance, the Buddha never says or a Buddha just is never at a loss for words and knows exactly what to say. A Buddha's speech is never nervous, in a nervous tense. It's steady, it's calm, it's not in a rush of confusion and jumble. And here's one I like a lot. Everything in a Buddhist speech can be used as an example. A Buddhist speech can make everything take on a higher meaning or aspect, since when explaining the Dharma, it can use any well-known thing in the world as an example and explain in relation to that well-known thing. Somebody I think who's really good at this is Venerable Rabina. She uses examples we all understand all the time. And in that way, it becomes a higher teaching. And we get it.
Yeah, everybody gets it.
We get it. We understand what she's talking about because of the examples being used. All right. So when we hear about these qualities of the Buddha's body and speech, it can be very effective for our own mind because it gives us some idea of how to train our body and speech and what kind of things we want to develop. It also gives us the confidence that these things can actually be developed, because as we reflect on our own ability and we see how it's possible for us to increase our abilities, to change, then we can infer that, well, other people probably were able to do this too and go all the way to this enlightened state. Therefore, I can do that as well. But we have to start. If we don't start, we won't see that we can do it. We have to take these little steps and start doing it. So now we go to a Buddha's mind. And there are two basic qualities of a Buddha's mind. So we talk about the Buddha body, speech, and mind. Two basic qualities. And these qualities we've all heard, wisdom and compassion. These are the two principal things that we want to develop. Wisdom and compassion. They always refer to it as two wings of the bird, of a bird. A bird can't fly with only one wing. So if we focus too much on compassion without the wisdom, we're going to fail. If we focus too much on the wisdom and not on compassion, we will also fail. So there's another way of talking about compassion, and they call that method. They call it the method aspect of the path. And method refers to things like renunciation, which is the determination to be free from cyclic existence. It refers to compassion. It refers to bodhicitta, which is the altruistic intention to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. It refers to the actions such as generosity, ethics, and patience, which are some of the means that are done with this altruistic intention. You know, so when we engage in the method aspect of the path, based on compassion, we accumulate a lot of what they call merit, or another phrase is called positive potential. So we accumulate a lot of positive potential through engaging in the method aspect of the path. And so these are the things I just explained. It's the compassion, it's the patience, it's the generosity, it's the ethics, it's all of that kind of stuff. The chief result, or the fruit that comes from that collection of positive potential, what that collection of positive potential brings about as the chief result is the body of a Buddha. That is the fruit of the method aspect of the path, is the body of a Buddha. The wisdom aspect of the path, the other aspect, refers to the repeated familiarization. Like I said, familiarization is what meditation is. The repeated familiarization on emptiness and the lack of inherent existence. That's what it is. Emptiness and lack of inherent existence. It's the nature of reality, and we repeatedly familiarize ourselves through meditation with that, through understanding more about it, becoming more familiar with it, gaining deeper realizations over and over and over. And the chief result, or the fruit of the accumulation of that wisdom, is a Buddha's mind. So the method aspect results in a Buddha's body. The wisdom aspect results in a Buddha's mind. And this is what will occur with us when we achieve the fruition of these two aspects. And both of them work together. Like I said, you can't do one without the other. A bird can't fly with just one wing. It's not going to work. We have to work. These two have to work in conjunction. So now we'll talk a little bit about, again, here's some more about Tantra, Brian, and what it's talking about. So many of you have probably seen some of the tantric pictures which show of male and female deities in sexual union, So what this symbolizes, the male symbolizes the method aspect of the path. The female symbolizes the wisdom aspect of the path. And the two are in union. Like we were saying, they have to be together. So people get very confused and misunderstand the symbolism in Tantra, you know. And this is what it is actually symbolizing. It's the union. So, like I said before, a Buddha is neither male nor female. So these are both aspects of one being. I asked Geshe Dragpa one time, I was looking at one of these tantric pictures, and I was saying, are those two separate beings, or are they one being? He says, oh, it's one being. It's the one being. It's the two aspects of the one being. So that's what we're talking about with Tantra. This is where people get really, really confused and go down all kinds of bumpy roads. Yeah. You can run into a lot of trouble if you don't have a really qualified teacher, and you just sort of go on your own instincts there. So like I said, the two in union show that we need to unify both method and wisdom, the compassion and the wisdom. They have to be unified within our own consciousness in order to become a completely, fully enlightened Buddha. Okay, another aspect of the Buddha's wisdom is the ability to see the two truths simultaneously. And here we're talking about conventional or relative truth and ultimate truth. Conventional or relative truth, we've talked about this before. This may be a little bit simpler now. It refers to all things as they appear to our sense consciousnesses. All the things that function, within our life, our daily life, that appear to us, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the couch, the people, the textures, everything, all of the things that appear to our sense consciousnesses. That's conventional or relative truth. As well as they consider the mental consciousness also to be one of the sense consciousnesses. There's the 5 physical consciousness, and then there's the mental sense consciousness. So our conceptual kind of mind is a relative conventional truth, or the way we think. Ultimate truth refers to the way things actually exist beyond all appearances to the senses, the way they actually exist. So conventional or relative truths like eggs and music and tables and bodies, they all appear to us as if they are truly existent out there. But in reality, they're not that way. And this goes back to the Chittamatra view, the mind-only view, that the objects that the mind perceives are not separate entities from the mind itself. So, on the appearance or conventional or relative level, all these things appear to us, ordinary beings, as being truly existent, solid, and concrete, with empty space separating them. On the ultimate level, the ultimate truths of those appearances is that they lack any kind of inherent existence or nature that exists independently of other phenomena. Nothing exists independently of other phenomena. Yeah. So now, to sort of, it's going to show this, we're now going to talk about the difference between an Arya noble being's perception and the way they see these two truths, and an enlightened being's, a Buddhist perception, and the way they simultaneously see these truths, or these two truths appear to them. So when an Arya noble being achieves high levels of meditation and the wisdom that perceives the emptiness of inherent existence directly, when that Arya noble being practitioner is in deep meditation on emptiness, no phenomena, no conventional phenomena appear at all to that Arya noble being's consciousness. There is no perception of that. All that a high practitioner, a high Arya noble being perceives during meditation is the emptiness of inherent existence. Once an Arya noble being comes out of that meditation, all appearances of a phenomena still appear to exist inherently to them, because their mind still has some subtle obscurations on it. Subtle obscurations that need to be, they need to continue on the path of meditation to remove subtle stains from the mind itself. So they have realized emptiness in meditation, and they know that things look solid, but they're not really solidly there. So it's sort of like when we watch a movie. This was an example Geshe Draco gave. When we watch a movie and we see a person on the screen, we can get very involved and we feel like that person's really there, right? But when we step back, we go, oh, well, they're actually not really there. But we can get quite involved in it. That's what's going on in our experience. So, yeah. So the Arya being can't directly perceive emptiness when they are sort of out of meditation, but they know everything's empty, and they think of it as if it's like a projected image. It's projected out there from their mind. So the Arya being alternates between meditation and post-meditation experience. Meditation, post-meditation. Now we go to the perception of a Buddha. A Buddha sees both levels of truth, conventional, relative, and ultimate. The conventional relative truth and ultimate truth. They see both of those simultaneously. So this is something a Buddha can do that all other highly realized Arya beings cannot do. Aryas go back and forth between the two perceptions. A Buddha perceives them both at the same time. When a Buddha perceives conventional phenomena, they don't appear to the Buddha as truly or inherently existing anymore. They actually appear to the Buddha as dependent arising. They actually see the dependently arising nature of all phenomena. They're seeing, it's hard to even know, but my guess is they would see all of everything, all the energy that's connecting everything to everything else. Right. They would see it all. It would appear to them. This is because the Buddha has totally removed all of the subtle obscurations and stains on their mind, which causes this kind of discordant appearance. When we refer to a Buddha's wisdom, we're referring to this ability to perceive how things really exist on a conventional level, dependent on causes, conditions, parts, consciousness, terms, and labels. This is how we use things. These terms and labels are huge. Right. It's huge. You know, right now, what's coming out of my mouth is just sound frequency. It's sound frequency. What all of us are doing, including myself, is we are decoding that sound frequency. We've learned that certain sounds have certain meanings in certain languages, have certain different kinds of sounds that have different kinds of meanings. And so we are immediately decoding nothing but sound frequency into words. These are simply labels, words. What was it that said? A word is a symbol of a symbol. I mean, so it's amazing what we're actually doing, but we don't realize we're doing it. Yeah, we don't realize that that's what we're doing. Okay. So at the same time, the Buddha perceives the deeper level at which all phenomena exist, that all phenomena are utterly lacking in any inherent existence whatsoever. And so this is a very special, unique kind of achievement. Now we'll talk about the Buddha's compassion. That's his wisdom. Compassion.
Christopher.
Yeah.
I want to go back to this idea of what does enlightenment look like, or what does emptiness look like, not enlightenment. You know, you're saying that certainly the Buddha can see everything all the time as empty and conventional, and Arya does it through meditation. But either way, what does emptiness look like? How would you think it looks?
I'm not sure they talk about it like looking like anything. It is a state of being. Basically, emptiness is a state of being in which nothing exists independently. Nothing at all. It's a mode of existence. I'm not sure it's something you see.
But the way you get there is through this meditative practice of thinking about emptiness and that everything is interdependent. And then, you know, you made a statement a couple of minutes ago about this being, you know, they see the energy of everything interacting. And so I'm thinking, at what level are they seeing the energy? How do they see, even if you see energy is still an entity that even if it's interacting is still an entity. So I'm wondering what does emptiness really look like?
Yeah, I think the energy and stuff itself also is a form of a conventional appearance if you're able to access that form. Relative. I like relative too. Relatively, if you were able to perceive those kinds of frequencies, which we as human beings do not with our particular sense consciousnesses, relatively speaking, if you were able to perceive those, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps you would see something like energy flowing. But that again is still a relative appearance. The understanding that a Buddha would have is that nothing exists independently on its own. So there also would be an appearance that would go with that, but that appearance is not the actual mode of existence. Like this tile is not a mode of existence. It's an appearance of a particular way of perceiving. But the actual mode of existence of reality is that things are dependent arisings, meaning they are empty of existing independently. I'm not sure there's anything to see. Perhaps the best you could do is you would see nothing.
You would see nothing.
I don't know.
But nothing is still something.
But I don't know. Right, it's still something. I mean, the only thing I can recall is when I had that very fleeting glimpse of Mahamudra meditation. My eyes were open, because you always do Mahamudra with your eyes open, but everything that my vision, I was picking up, the vision sort of went kind of like just blank. It's a different thing. Yeah, but all I'm saying, but again, it is a kind of conventional appearance that's relating to a particular state. Emptiness itself, I don't think, has an appearance, and it could just be. That's true. When we look at a lamp, we think we're looking at a lamp, but it's really a bunch of things, and there's no lamp at all to be seen. Right.
It's a whole collection of something that we have labeled.
That it's a collection of parts. Right. And we label it as lamp, but actually there is no lamp other than the mere label, you know. And so that's why emptiness is such a tricky thing, and we have to familiarize ourselves with it and go over and over and over again. What about the subject-object aspect? That goes back to the mind only. Yeah, the mind only. There is no object separate from the mind that's perceiving it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of it is according to the way we normally think and feel about things, it's kind of mind-boggling. But according to the Buddhist view, that's the way things are. But we don't get it. We don't.
But there have been, but Buddha attained enlightenment.
Mhm.
And we think there's more than one Buddha. Quote.
That's what
There's
they
been
say.
more than one Buddha. So maybe I'll ask Nima this, but I think there must be some teachings or some description somewhere from some of these Buddhas about what enlightenment is. Somewhere, I guess I'm just, is it, when people die, they say they see this bright white light, and they just it's kind of nothing except this bright white light. Is that emptiness? Is that?
I can't say that. Yeah, what Kavita is saying is that whiteness that we see is an appearance that comes with the dissolution of, there's a white drop. It's this energetic white drop that's at our heart chakra. It's just a teaching you'd have to go through, and someday we will on death, the process of death. But that's an appearance that occurs to the mind based on. So again, here's another way of doing it, of looking at it. You have method and wisdom. We have these two wings. You also have appearance and the nature of reality. So any appearance is going to fall into this other category. Wisdom itself is just a realization, an understanding, a knowing of the nature of reality. I think it's almost as if everything can have an appearance, Buddhas can appear like a human being. Buddhas can appear like this if they wanted to appear like this. Buddhas can appear, as a being made of light. So all these appearances that a Buddha uses are done for the benefit to help others in ways that they can be helped. But the Buddha's mind is always this mind that realizes emptiness, the actual nature of the mode of existence. So I'm not sure there's an appearance that goes with it. There's always some kind of appearance, It's a good question. I mean, it's one of those questions that, if, the thing to also, when you go to ask Geshe-Nima this question, really think about how you phrase it so that he's going to be able to understand it, the actual question. And one of the things that I think it was Geshe Drogpa and Lama Pasang taught us is to always phrase a question to a spiritual teacher so that they could answer that question either yes or no, which means we do all of the work in prepping that question and thinking through how that question could be posed so that we could get an answer that was yes or no. And then from that yes or no, then you can go into a further conversation that the spiritual teacher, particularly someone who's from another culture, is going to understand. So that's when we talked about the speech, being sensitive to other cultures, this is what we need to do with teachers like this. Venerable Robina, you could say anything. And she's from our culture. She knows where it's at. She gets it, and she will come right back at you, with an answer. But with somebody like Geshe-Nima or Geshe Sopo or even Lama Pasang, it needs to be phrased in a way that they can answer yes or no. They will understand what you're saying, and they'll say yes, or they'll say no, and then from there you can continue the sort of dialogue about it. But that would just be my advice. Okay, so we're just basically about at our end here. So I'll just go a few things about the Buddha's compassion. Their compassion is impartial. A Buddha's compassion is equal towards everyone, no matter what that living being feels towards the Buddha, whether they like the Buddha or not, whether they make offerings or not, whether they have faith or not, or believe in the Buddha or not. A Buddha's compassion for us is much stronger than our own compassion for ourselves. A Buddha cares more about us than we care about ourselves. And we kind of go, how is that possible? It seems like we care a lot about ourselves, to the point of being, very self-cherishing. But in another way, we don't really actually care about ourselves, because we engage in all kinds of activities and behaviors that are harmful to ourselves. We eat food that is bad for us. We drink things that are bad for us. We engage in activities and speech and actions of our body that are harmful to us. We get in accidents because we're not mindful of everything, all of our surroundings around us. I mean, the reason I fell off 2 ladders is because I wasn't being mindful of what was going on. And in my head was somewhere else, being sort of frustrated, which is another word for anger, it's just, so when we think about it, we are, even though there's a lot of self-cherishing, we don't care for ourselves in the way somebody like a Buddha would. A Buddha will never, oh my God, we'll beat up on ourselves emotionally, and nobody has to do that for us. We do it pretty well for ourselves, The Buddha never deliberately will harm us. Their loving kindness and compassion is so great that they never have any ill intent or will do any action that will deliberately harm another. So then the question comes up, quickly get to this one. If a Buddha doesn't want to harm me, and the Buddha's also always benefiting me, why can I still become miserable? How can it be that when I'm trying to practice the Dharma, sometimes things even get worse? If the Buddha taught the Dharma to benefit, and I'm practicing the Dharma, but my mind's all over the place and my life's falling apart, then what good is the Dharma? That's a question that can come up. It has come up. It's come up in this household. From the Buddhist side, this is important to remember, from the Buddhist side, there's no intention to harm. There's only the intention to benefit us. But it's very, very important to remember that although the Buddha is omniscient, the Buddha is not omnipotent. The Buddha can't wave his hand and poof, we'll be happy. It's not how, that's not the way interdependence actually works. It's impossible in an interdependent system for one of the parts to just say, oh, you're all better, everybody's happy. It can't, it's impossible to work that way. So from our side, what's going on is we don't understand how to practice properly. We either go overboard in one direction or we go underboard in another direction. We get off balance, but not because the Buddha lacks compassion. It's because we're not familiar with how to practice. Sometimes when we're practicing, it seems like things are getting worse. It really does. It seems like we're more selfish than before. We have less concentration than before. We're practicing the Dharma, and it seems like we can't even keep our life together. This is because we are now, through the Dharma teachings, we're now beginning to notice our own ego self-grasping in a way that we didn't notice it before, right? Where it's becoming clearer and obvious to us, what we're doing that's not good, that doesn't make us happy. When we try to concentrate on topics, for instance, Dharma topics, that our self-grasping ego does